The number 150 is also known as Dunbar's number. What is it, and what's its relevance to your list of friends?
Comic Sans has been called the most hated font in history. Who hates it? For what reasons?
Many modernist architects and artists share a couple of things in common. Where they went to kindergarten and something called Froebels Gifts. What are they?
Who doesn't love a game of Scrabble? Where did the game come from?
Hello and welcome to REMORANDOM, Everything Interesting, a podcast. I'm Remo Dufresne.
And I'm Claudia Chan Shaw.
Oh boy, a blizzard. So I look a bit different today because my computer, one of the ports is bung. So I'm doing this all through my laptop screen. And so if this looks different, that's why.
I don't know. I think you look pretty good for a man who hasn't had much sleep.
I know. Well, what she's referring to, folks, is the fact that I just got back from 2 weeks away. I went to the TED conference in Vancouver and then spent a few days in LA and about a week in New York. And oh boy, a lot happened. But TED, I reckon it's probably my last TED conference, and it was also my 20th TED conference. For you people who are watching on YouTube, you can see my
oh, look, he's legit.
My badge, and there's my little gold thing which says TED 20 plus. So that got me a lot of respect in the coffee queues.
So if you wanted more respect, why wouldn't you make it to TED 25? Why are you thinking this is going to be your last one?
Well, I stepped aside from TEDx Sydney, and it was under those auspices that I attended the last bunch of times. You know, I've been going for 33 years. It's also maybe someone else's turn to take my seat there. That's all French for it's very, very expensive.
And you don't want to pay.
But I've met a lot of friends there, and I'll stay in touch with them somehow. And, you know, you never say never, I guess. Usual, interesting, curatorial mix of people, lots of AI. Chris Anderson interviewed Sam Altman, who's the boss of ChatGPT. That was kind of exhilarating and terrifying at the same time about how fast the super intelligence is developing. There was actually, and you'll be interested as a creative person, there was lots of talk and controversy about appropriation of intellectual property and consent and compensation models for artists. And so that's a hot issue at the moment.
A lot of artists are very, very concerned about that because you can prompt it and say, paint me something in the style of Claudia Chan Shaw, and bingo. It's better than I could do.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll put the link to the Altman interview, and you can see how he successfully avoided answering those questions.
Yeah. That's a question on every artist's lips.
There was one of the dinners was one of these kind of Jeffersonian dinners where you sit around with other people and then you're given a kind of a topic to talk about, and the topic was optimism, which is kind of one of my favorite things to talk about. And it was actually pretty interesting to hear what people's relationship to optimism and hope is. And I guess the takeaway for me was that it's really an important leadership quality to be able to be positive and be optimistic, because then that emanates out to the people you're working with and your collaborators. And the worst thing and this is from someone who often wears his heart on his sleeve, right? So it's sometimes hard for me to disguise my catastrophism.
Catastrophism.
Is that even a word?
I was just wondering. I think the antonym might be pessimism.
Right. Okay. Anyway, one of the things we're talking about today is Dunbar's number. So this was in Memorandum 3, the yellow book. And what is Dunbar's number? It is the theoretical number of people who you can maintain a meaningful, stable relationships with, and before the number becomes too big and things start breaking down. And it's kind of cute that it's so specifically 150. The concept was proposed by the British anthropologist Robin Dunbar in the 1990s. So he looked at goats in Scotland.
Goats,
Were you
as in, nah,
were you expecting me to say that?
no.
And then chimpanzees and various other primates, and he was looking at why they groom each other and whether that's for reasons of hygiene or just to become friends. So what he discovered was that the maximum number of other, peers that these primates can maintain relationships with is determined by the size of their brain. So the bigger the brain, the more capacity you have to have a larger number of meaningful relationships. And I've done a little diagram which is on the in the chapter of Remorandum, and you will see it. There, basically, the little stick man in the middle is me or you, and around that there's a circle containing 5 people. So they're your loved ones, right? And then outside that there's 15 more people who are you would regard as good friends, and then outside that the number is 150, and they're your meaningful connections. Beyond that, 500 acquaintances and 1,500 people who you can kind of recognize and tie to a name and kind of figure out who they are. Facebook makes us think that number can be bigger, but that's an artificiality. That's an
Really?
artificiality.
All those people aren't really my friends. You've disappointed me, Remo, honestly.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news. So how do you define that 150? So Robin Dunbar, and I'll quote him, the number of people you would not feel embarrassed about joining for a drink and having a drink, or if you see them in a bar, or the number of people who you wouldn't feel kind of weird about bumping into an airport lounge and you'd be able to chat to them. So that's his kind of test.
Ex-girlfriends or boyfriends in that list then?
No, oops, I have to go to the bathroom again.
Yeah.
That not really. By the way, that's just me responding to Claudia's quip. So this relationship applies not just to sort of hunter-gatherer societies, but for, in modern groupings, military organizations, English villages, even Christmas card lists. So in a piece he wrote for the Financial Times in 2018 called "Why Drink is the Secret to Humanity's Success," about the positive role of moderate alcohol consumption, the writer explains that we have alcohol to thank for this, because this has greased the wheels of socialization for centuries. So
A little libation.
a little libation is how can it hurt, right? So people can float in and out of your various rings. They can move from one section to another, but as soon as more people move into your special ring of 150, typically some people get chucked out. So it's hard to maintain, and there are various high-tech companies who build lots of campuses, and they tend to build another building when it reaches 150. So there's Dunbar's number, and so do with that what you will.
Well, I'm wondering what you're going to do with the 150 new friends you made at TED, because your little circle's growing. It's doubled.
Oh yeah, I dumped some of those early.
Oh, okay. If you're listening, it's been swell. He's moved on.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's
true
very interesting. And it doesn't also take into the condition. What is it? Prosopagnosia. Where you can't retain faces.
Oh yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Oh, wait
I
on.
think Dr. Carl has it.
Sorry to distract myself. Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
Sorry to distract myself, but on that, you can't remember faces. There was a mentalist at the TED conference who kind of blew us all away with, his little tricks and doodads, but he did give us one practical piece of advice for those of us who, being introduced to someone by name, immediately forget that person's name, right? So
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Repeat the name. What else? What tricks?
Well, it's a 1, 2, 3 punch, basically. It's like,
Okay.
so you say, "Hi, I'm Claudia." Then I say, "Oh, Claudia." Is that with a K or with a C? Claudia. Well, it's never with a K, so that's not a good example. And then you have to do it one more time. So yeah, one is not enough, two is not enough, but 3 times will cement it in your memory forever.
Okay. So instead of saying something daft like, is that Claudia with a C, not Claudia with a K, because Claudia with a K goes, not so, it's as in Liza with a Z, you could say, oh, Italian, French? Is Claudia Italian or French origin? Or
Yeah,
something like
you
that.
have to
Use the name in a
say the
sentence.
word. You have to say the word. So
Okay.
yeah. So
And then you can
that
forget it.
try that out. Try that out.
Okay. So, well, John, is that John or Jon?
Yeah, that's
Is
good.
that okay? Is that short for toilet or gendarme? Okay.
Well,
Okay.
now John
I'll
has
try and
kind of
remember
walked
that.
away from you and gone to the buffet to get seconds.
God, what a lunatic. Okay. All right. Well, that's very interesting. I'm going to try that out.
Okay.
And see, you've got a good name, Remo, because it's unusual. I
Yeah.
suppose they might call you Rocky or Roxy or something else. What do you get?
Well, this morning on the way to the pool to do my laps, I bumped into Bondi Tony from Bondi Tony's Burger Joint, and I said, "Oh, I saw the piece about you in this morning's Herald, all praise of your cheeseburger." And he said, "Thanks, Remy," and I didn't correct
Remy.
him. Yeah, so
Yeah. No, that's just a diminutive.
that's
Does anybody call you Remy?
I'll pass. I'll give it a pass, but he's the only one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Rimbo. Okay,
What do you
Rimbo.
got? What do you got for me? What do you got for me?
I've got the story of a typeface, and it's a much maligned typeface. Comic Sans, or sans, meaning without, meaning referring to a typeface that is without a serif. So, sans serif, sans serif, Comic Sans has no serifs. And behind every typeface, there is, of course, a story. And in the case of Comic Sans, the story revolves around fame, celebrity, hate campaigns, designer manifestos, and redemption.
You got me. I'm hooked. I'm hooked. I want to know more. I
Yeah.
want to know more.
Okay, so if you're not familiar with Comic Sans, just scroll down your typefaces in your Word documents and you will see it. It's still there. And it's widely spaced. It's got kind of curvy letters, no serifs, and it looks like comic book writing.
Yep,
Something
cartoony.
you might see in, say, a comic book like Watchmen. And it was designed by a fellow called Vincent Connard, and it was designed to visualize the voice of Rover, who was a digital talking doggy that appeared in something called Microsoft Bob software. And it was designed so it looked user-friendly. You think, oh, that's a friendly typeface. I'll remember that. And at the time, the designer Vincent said, dogs don't talk in Times New Roman.
No,
I get that.
they
I
don't.
get that. They don't. Because comic books have always had that sans serif font. So for technical reasons, Comic Sans was never actually used in Rover's speech bubbles for the purpose it was designed, but it did appear in the Windows 95 Microsoft Plus pack, and Microsoft said at the time, this casual but legible face has proved very popular with a wide variety of people. It was so popular, in fact, that its widespread use has been the subject of great criticism and mockery.
Yes.
So much so, in 2009, two Indianapolis designers, graphic designers, Dave and Holly Combs, were so outraged by Comic Sans, that squiggly font, they said it was like showing up for a black tie event in a clown costume.
Oh dear.
Harsh words. And they launched a campaign to ban Comic Sans to eradicate its misuse. And so their manifesto included these fighting words. By banding together to eradicate this font from the face of the earth, we strive to ensure that future generations will be liberated from this epidemic and never suffer this scourge that is a plague of our time. Bit of an overstretch,
Wow.
don't you think?
They've
Yeah.
got too much time in their hands.
Well, they do. And then a journalist from the Washington Post in 2014 chimes in. Caitlin Dewey says, Comic Sans is less a font than an internet punchline. Anything written in the loopy childwrite type is ripe for derision. no matter what it describes. That's pretty rough stuff.
I
On
know.
the flip side, there are people who love it. There was a
Yes.
poll in 2017 on Twitter. A UK publication that was aimed at educators interviewed 7,234 teachers. And they said, you know, do you use Comic Sans for teaching resources? And 44% of them said, yep, we do. We love it. It's easy to read. It's great for kids with dyslexia. It's easy to mimic, so you can improve your handwriting. And it's pleasing for kiddies. So there you go. Then there's a lady called Liz Jackson, who's a founder of a disability-led design organization called the Disabled List, and she led the hashtag Comic Sans takeover, and it was time to take back the meme. And she said designers tend to despise Comic Sans, but for disabled people, there's this subset that prefer it, so they love to use it. Okay, so we're going back a step. Do you remember the designers who wanted to ban the font?
Yes.
The Indianapolis graphic designers. So in 2019, one of them, Dave, had a change of heart, and he felt that the ban movement had attracted a lot of negativity. Duh, I think so. You started it. So people then felt justified for bullying those who use Comic Sans. So this sparked a counter movement for pity
Right.
for Comic Sans. So for him, the joke had gotten out of hand. He'd gone so far as to change the name of his movement from Ban Comic Sans to Use Comic Sans. Even so, haters gotta hate. I don't know what you think of it. I've never used it. I think it's somehow a little flippant and careless looking. Says a lot about the user, I think. What do you think?
I've not used it. There's a US pundit on technology and business called Scott Galloway, who I actually knew when I lived in New York, and all of his weekly newsletters come out in the diagrams come out in Comic Sans.
Really?
I have a feeling it might be ironic use, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think so. It's a joke. Comic Sans.
Yeah.
Hashtag irony.
That is the font. That is the font. All right. Next, Froebels Gifts. Do you know what that is? So
No, I don't. Tell me. Are you going to give me one?
I think you would like them. They do appeal to designy types for reasons I'll explain. So Froebels Gifts, the German, badly pronounced, I'm sure, is Froebelgaben. They are educational play materials for very young children, and they were developed by this German pedagogue, Friedrich Froebel, in 1837 for use in what was the world's first ever kindergarten in Bad Blankenburg. So, yeah, kindergartens haven't been around forever. And in fact, prior to Froebel, very young children weren't educated at all, but he was the first to recognize that significant brain development does happen between the ages of 0 and 3. And so came kindergartens. So these, what he referred to as gifts, were designed to help young children understand basic concepts of geometry, maths, and the physical world through playing with these things. I think maybe it's best explained through telling you what they were. So initially,
Tell me what they were.
well, there were 6 gifts, right? So the gift 1, and I'm reading from the chapter in Memorandum 3. Gift 1, 6 soft knitted balls, red, yellow, blue, purple, green, and orange. So you can imagine those in little hands.
Nice.
Gift 2, a wooden sphere, cylinder, and cube. Gift 3, a cube divided into 8 smaller cubes. Gift 4 was a rectangular prisms. Gift 5, more cubes divided into halves or quarters. And gift 6, wooden tablets. So, you know, the little knitted balls could be given to a child at just 6 weeks old, followed by, so you do them sequentially.
Okay.
Yeah. So they don't get all their gifts at once. They get them one at a time and in order. So they were beautiful looking, as you might imagine, and you'll see that if you're watching this on YouTube. But they were hugely influential, these gifts, and various educational pioneers like Caroline Pratt, who was behind the City and Country School in the West Village of New York, as it happens, where my daughter attended there for a few years when we lived there. Steiner School, Rudolf Steiner, Maria Montessori, they all used and were across these things. And lots of modernist architects that you would know were exposed as children to Froebel's ideas about geometry, including Frank Lloyd Wright, who was a huge Froebel's fan.
Yep.
Le Corbusier,
Look, I was knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say Le Corbusier.
and Buckminster Fuller, who actually first developed
Mr. Dome.
his famous geodesic dome as a child in a Froebel kindergarten. So there you go.
Really?
Yes.
Buckminster Fuller designed the geodesic dome when he was in kindy.
Well, in
Wow.
a kindergarten, let me get back to you on whether or not he was 4 years of age, or it was just hanging out in the kindergarten. But so
That's great.
they're the architects, and also Bauhaus, the Bauhaus movement. So Bauhaus artists, Vasily Kandinsky, Piet
Walter
Mondrian,
Gropius.
Paul Klee, and others. They were either educated in a Froebel kindergarten as children or were trained as Froebel kindergarten teachers.
Interesting.
So these kindergartens weren't just schools, they were effectively art schools that taught little children about shape and form and colour. And when kindergarten graduates went out into the world, they changed the world. So how's that for developing something that has lots of impact and ripples that go out far and wide?
Can you still get them?
You can. The original Froebel kindergarten system has inspired a new design syntax called shape grammars, developed at MIT, still taught and is expanding at MIT. And there's a video. The link is from the chapter in the book to a video from Froebel USA. So yeah, you can still get them. I mean, the world has moved away from such beautiful quintessential open play, but not
Still
all.
relevant.
Yeah, still very relevant.
Still relevant. So while we're on to learning, so those objects are about touching, feeling, understand about shapes and spatial relationships. What about words? Words. Scrabble. In 2007, back then, there was a Scrabble tournament in the UK, and there was a player named Philip Appleby, and he played a 7-letter word that had everybody baffled. And the word was Kazik, Caziques. And it refers to a South American tribal leader. And it earned an impressive 392 points for that single move. So this was the highest scoring single play ever recorded in a Scrabble tournament. But I know you've been having sleepless nights and wondering, where did Scrabble come from?
Yes.
So during the Great Depression, you did, didn't you?
I did.
During the Great Depression, there was an unemployed architect who didn't have any Froebel stuff named Alfred Moser Butts, and he was determined that he was going to create a game that would be entertaining during those tough times. So he began tinkering with lettered tiles and a board. And he combined the elements of a crossword puzzle and anagrams. And then he meticulously counted the frequency and the value of each of those letters and designed a system that would reward players for strategic word placement. You with me?
Sounds very Scrabbly.
It is. So after several iterations, he came up with a great name and he called it Lexico, which I like. I can see where that comes from. Well, he showed it around and he got rejected from all sorts of people, and they thought the game was too complex and unmarketable. So undeterred, he persisted. He kept at it, making adjustments and refinements. Eventually, he catches the attention of a guy called James Bruno, who sees potential in the game. And in 1948, Bruno acquires the rights and he renames it Crisscross Words. Oh, that's kind of self-explanatory, isn't it?
Wow, I preferred Lexico, but anyway.
Yeah, it's neat. It's smart. So Crisscross Words undergoes a few more changes, and he initially builds the game by hand, and then soon it's in such demand that, capacity is great. And in 1952, he licenses the game to Selchow and Reiter, who's a company that originally turned down the original inventor. Under their management, it's rebranded as Scrabble.
Finally.
How good is that? Yeah, finally, we got there. And they came up with the word. They thought, well, we better find out the meaning of this word Scrabble. The word Scrabble means scratch or grope around with one's fingers to find, collect, or hold on to something.
Perfect.
So I wonder what the word score is for the word Scrabble. You can let us know. Scrabble's popularity soars in the early 1950s, and the company embarks on marketing campaigns, and they organise tournaments and promote the game's educational benefits. And then by the mid-1950s, Scrabble is a cultural phenomenon, and it's captured the whole of the United States. The success spreads. It goes international, adapted to different languages and alphabets. The game's appeals transcends borders and cultures. And you've got these competitive players now coming together at tournaments, maximising their skills with these outrageous scores. In 1972, the company has financial difficulties and they sell the rights to the toy company Coleco. So Hasbro eventually acquires Scrabble from Coleco, and Mattel also has the rights in some places. And you can even use it as a mobile thingy. Now, it's received recognition for its impact on language and literacy. But I just put this question to you, Remo Giuffre.
Yes.
It's really competitive. Can you imagine if Scrabble was arranged in Comic Sans? We could start a revolution.
Oh no. I'm going to be dreaming about that now. Ugh, yuck. I love Scrabble, but now I don't because I'm imagining it with cartoon writing all over it.
Yeah, you wouldn't take us seriously, would
Are
you?
you a Scrabble nerd, by the way?
I'm not a Scrabble nerd, but I'm a Scrabble player, admirer, and I haven't played for quite some time though.
Right.
But I like it because I'm competitive.
Yes, I'm starting to get that picture. So I'm learning more and more about you. But now we've come to the end of our time. Claudia, I appreciate you educating us. It was a pretty geeky episode today. Lots of,
It was.
lots of information. We'll be testing you later, readers. That's all from me. Catch us online on our YouTube channel, on the website, remorandom.com. And all of these topics are available in our books, aren't they, Claudia?
You can order copies of the books at remorandom.com, and we would love you to get in touch with any comments or suggestions for great topics via email, hello@remorandom.com. So you must have some great suggestions.
Hello. I can hear the dog barking, but you won't be able to because I'll scrub that out. All right. Bye for now.
See ya.